Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to this volunteer water quality monitoring training. If you're watching this video, it's because you want to learn more about how Anacostia Riverkeeper and our partners do our recreational water quality monitoring in DC and Maryland. So, we are going to walk you through how we monitor, what we monitor, and why we monitor. We'll also share how you can get involved, and there will be a quiz that you can access at the end of the video to qualify yourself to be a monitor with us if you so choose. First things first, we run this partnership in Maryland thanks to our funders and partners. We want to thank the Chesapeake Bay Trust, which funds this project, especially our Montgomery County sites in partnership with Montgomery County DEP. We're also grateful to our partners, Neighbors of Northwest Branch, Friends of Sligo Creek, One Montgomery Green, Joe's Movement Center, and Jones Greenwork Team, Friends of Lower Beaver Dam Creek, Friends of Quincy Run, and a bunch of other sub-watershed partners. This work is truly collaborative, and we could not do it without you guys. This year, one of our big changes is that our DC and Prince George's County sites are self-funded and supported by our generous donors. So thank you so much to them. To get started, let's think about what is getting into our streams and into our river and why water quality monitoring is necessary in the first place. So, what might contribute to the streams not being safe for recreation, for us, for the plants, and for the animals living in them? Urban streams face a lot of pollution that can make the water unsafe. You can see some of the common causes on the screen right now. We've got trash pollution, chemicals leaching from tires onto roadways. We've got road salt that increases the chloride levels in the water. And we've got waste from dogs, wildlife, and as you guys are probably familiar, leaking sewer systems. We can see oil and gasoline from roads and excess nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus from lawns and golf courses that contribute to a process called eutrophication, in which we see algae blooms that lowers the oxygen levels in the water. And this is exacerbated by the amount of impervious surfaces that we see in the Anacostia watershed. In natural areas, rainwater filters through the soil and through the plants and wetlands before reaching the streams, so a lot of that nastiness can be filtered off. But in urban areas like DC and the parts of Maryland that we're monitoring in, roads and rooftops and parking lots prevent that water from reaching the soil and prevent that water from getting filtered. So instead, the rainwater carries all of the pollutants from the surface, goes into our stormwater drains, and then enters into our streams and to our rivers directly. Storm drains play a huge role in the process. The water that enters the storm drains is not treated, unfortunately. So everything that you see when you see it raining really hard and those like what looks like a mini stream running on the side of the road, when that enters the stormwater drains, nothing is being done before it hits the streams and the rivers. It flows directly into the creeks in your backyard. That means that anything on the street, oil, trash, animal waste, that is all ending up in the water. And as we see more impervious surfaces, which is leading to more stormwater runoff in combination with climate change, it's all leading to erosion. This can expose sewer pipes, causing leaks and introducing additional contaminants into the waterways. As you can see from these pictures here, the erosion exposing it makes it a lot easier for infrastructure problems to occur. We have seen some infrastructure improvements in DC through the DC Clean Rivers Project. Some large tunnels have kind of funneled off the excess water from the combination sewer system. The Anacostia River Tunnel opened in 2018, and then the Northeast Boundary Tunnel opened in 2023, and the Potomac River Tunnel began its construction in 2024. This is helping to alleviate some of those issues that we see with stormwater drainage causing the problems that it does. So Because of all of the nastiness that we are seeing on our roadways and impervious surfaces, monitoring is absolutely essential. And there's so many things that we could monitor in our waterways, but we are going to focus on three big ones for recreational water quality that are used by the EPA. So we're looking at E. coli, turbidity, and pH. E. coli is a fecal indicator bacteria, meaning it comes from animal waste, that helps us to assess whether or not the water is safe for recreation. Turbidity refers to how cloudy the water is, which can indicate the presence of pollution or different particles that are suspended in the water. pH tells us whether or not the water is too acidic or too basic. And we measure temperature as well. And with our partnerships with UMD and the Smithsonian, the Circ Lab, we analyze nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, and also MST, which is microbial source tracking, which is a procedure that helps us identify where the fecal bacteria is coming from, what organism it was a part of before it became waste. So tracking animal waste from whether it's like bird, canine, et cetera, et cetera. So we are very focused on monitoring bacteria. Some bacteria is very harmful to humans and pets if they come into contact with the water, one of them being E. coli. E. coli is found in the intestines of humans and other warm-blooded animals, and it is used as an indicator for the presence of several pathogens that live in our digestive system. So as I mentioned before, our MST work helps to identify the source of that bacteria, to know whether or not it's like human, canine, avian, and that helps us to know, okay, is this just bird poop that got washed into the water naturally? Is there possibly a sewage line break and we're seeing a lot of human waste? It helps us to better keep track of how this bacteria is entering the water and whether or not it's something that we can stop. And monitoring this bacteria helps us to inform the public about whether or not the bacteria levels meet EPA standards for your safety. So where do we monitor? Our monitoring sites are located across DC, Montgomery, and Prince George's counties, and they include some of the tributaries like Sligo Creek, Long Branch, Northwest Branch, Pape Branch, Northeast Branch, Quincy Run, Lower Beaver Dam Creek, as well as the main stem of the Anacostia River, starting at Bladensburg Waterfront Park, going all the way down to Buzzard Point. So let's dig a little bit into what the steps of the monitoring process looks like. As a volunteer, your main responsibility is to collect samples every other Wednesday between 7 and 10 a.m. You'll pick up your sampling kit earlier in the week, visit your assigned site, collect your samples and field data, and then drop the samples off at your designated location for lab analysis. You can sign up to monitor on Monday and Tuesday, and then you'll be looking in your email inbox for information about monitoring that week, as well as information on where to pick up your designated supplies from. We try to post the information and the data about what we've collected on Thursday, but you'll see it by Friday at the very latest. Once you complete the monitoring training today, I will be sending you a Google Sheet which will have all of the months of the summer and all of the sites for you to choose from for when you want to monitor. You are welcome to choose as much or as little as you'd like. You can choose a couple weeks of when you're not going to be around if you know that you're going to be going on vacation, or maybe you just want to sample one site one time because you'll be in the area, or you're not going to be able to do all of the time because of your Wednesday morning availability. That's okay with us. We are happy to have you for as long as you will give us your time. You can also sample multiple sites on multiple different weeks. So it really is just like a choose your own adventure. Pick where you want to be in the watershed. Pick the sites that you want to monitor. And this is a really good excuse to see parts of the watershed you've never seen before. So if you are looking for an excuse to get out into nature, this is it. But when you sign up, you will put your name next to the site that you want to sign up at. And you can also sign up with a friend or a partner. We encourage people to go out in duos or in groups just for safety, to make sure that there's somebody to help you out if something were to go wrong. We do it is mostly like a safety concern, but we understand that if you are having a busy morning and you don't really want to coordinate with anybody else about when you are going to be doing pickup and the monitoring, that is also fine. Please make sure to give us accurate information for the email and phone number. Give us an email that you readily check. Don't give us a junk email. We aren't going to blow up your email and send you a bunch of spam, but we want to make sure that we are able to contact you efficiently if anything were to change, if there's like a last minute rain situation, or if we're concerned about like a possible safety issue at your site. If we're worried that your sample hasn't come in and we want to make sure that you're okay and that you're not injured, we want to make sure that we have access to you. And then you will also note where you want to pick up and drop off your samples when you're done with them. The next step is to pick up your supplies. All of your supplies are going to be provided in our iconic little red cooler. The only thing that we don't provide is ice. You got to pack that yourself because we give it to you multiple days before sampling. Bacteria really flourishes in warm environments. So in between the time that you're collecting it and we're processing it in the lab, we do not want bacteria to have the chance to grow in that bottle. We want that bottle to reflect the conditions of the sampling site and not the conditions of the bottle. So having ice is very important to inhibit the growth of that bacteria so that when we get it, we are looking at what is happening in our water. It can be an ice pack if you have a reusable one. You can also throw like a water bottle in the freezer overnight. We've had people use a bag of frozen peas, whatever works for you. We have pickup sites in DC, Prince George's, and Montgomery County, so you can just decide which of these 3 spots that you see on the screen you like best and coordinate with us for timing on when you want to pick up your supplies. Step 3 is you are going to head out into the field. Watch your email if the weather is looking a little bit shifty. We will notify you by at least 5 p.m. the day before if monitoring is postponed or if we, if we had to make any cancellations. And then we also have a website available that you will have access to in the caption of this video that tells you information like where the site is and how to get there. So we will provide coordinates as well as like pictures of what the site looks like so that you're confident that you're in the right spot. Make sure you're parking in a safe location. Don't break any parking rules. I don't think saying that you're a water quality monitor will get you out of a parking violation, though I wish it did. And if you're having any trouble reaching a spot, please make sure to reach out to us. We want to prioritize your safety. So if something is amiss and you're just unable to get to your spot as usual, let us know. We can figure out an alternate or tell you how to proceed. Make sure that you are using the manual that we provided. We'll also be giving you a digital PDF and a printed version when you pick up your cooler, and it will guide you to the precise sampling spot with a Google Map pin, coordinates, some parking suggestions, yeah. And then the next step is collecting your data. Look at the cute little dog in this picture. Once you're at your site, you're going to collect data. You are going to note a couple of physical parameters that you're measuring with the tools that we provide, as well as collecting samples in the bottles that we have. You'll collect the water and then bring it back to the lab for processing. You will want to do these samples in the same order every time, just because there's a couple of things that can go wrong if you sample in the wrong order. So you always want to start with getting the air temperature and then the water temperature, because the thermometer can read inaccurately if it's wet. So do the air temperature first, then the water temperature, then pH, and then grabbing your various samples of water for bacteria turbidity, and then the CERC nutrient or the UMD MST samples. And please, please, please make sure that you're wearing gloves. Some people choose to wear gloves after they've done the temperature and pH. But honestly, when I go and I monitor, I put on gloves at the very beginning. We are handling water that has the potential to have really high bacteria count. And, any scratch on your hands is an entry for bacteria to get into your body. And we don't want that. So make sure you glove up. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to want to start with air temperature. Wet thermometers give skewed readings, and so we want to start with a dry thermometer to get the ambient temperature of the environment. You're going to remove the plastic sheath from the thermometer and turn it on. You're going to allow it to acclimate, just sit it down, make sure that the metal probe isn't touching anything on the floor. And let it acclimate, let it balance out. Once you see that the number isn't really changing anymore after a few minutes, go ahead and write down that temperature. For water temperature, you are going to dip the tip of the thermometer about an inch, no more than half of the probe, into the water, and avoid any sediments. So don't stick it into the bottom of the water. Make sure that it's floating in just the water itself. And not like touching anything on the surface. And then again, you're going to wait until the number stabilizes before you write down the temperature on your data sheet. To measure pH, you are going to use pH strips that we provide to you. On one end of the pH strip, there's going to be a little felt pad. You are going to dip that into the water for 60 seconds to let it absorb, and then you're going to let it develop for a few minutes. Cold water can take a while for the color to change, so really give it some time. You'll see it change from kind of an orange to a greenish color, which indicates a more neutral pH. So the side of the bottle will have a color spectrum that you can use to say what the pH is. So you're just going to hold it up, see what color it matches closely, and record that number. And if it is between two colors, you can go ahead and use 0.5. So if you're like, oh, this is kind of a yellowy green, it's between a 6 and a 7, you can say 6.5. And please make sure that the strip is not discolored before using it. If it has been contaminated, make sure you use a new one. It should look like what you see in this picture as soon as you take it out from the little container it's in. So if you haven't put your gloves on already, you're going to want to put them on now because this is the point where we are going to be touching the water. Go ahead and label the bottle with the date and the site name just to really make sure that we have that information. And you are going to want to make sure that the bottle that we provide to you for bacteria sampling is sealed and sterile. When you look into the little container for your bacteria sample, you will see a small amount of white powder that binds with the chlorine and other contaminants in the water and makes them, neutralizes them so that they don't affect the bacteria in the sample. So if you notice that that little white powder is not in the bottle, let us know, and avoid spilling the powder or rinsing out the bottle to remove the powder ahead of time. It is really essential for the type of analysis that we do. You are going to want to scoop the water into the little container you're going to want to fully submerge it so that it's not just taking water from just the surface. And this is why it's good to have gloves on, because your hands will go into the water a little bit. Make sure that you're getting at least 100 milliliters. You're going to want to fill this bottle basically up to the top and then seal it. Really, really make sure that that is sealed tight. Dry it off, and then you will be attaching a label to it. There will be a little sticker adhesive that you will fill in the information for, that you will put onto the side of the bottle. You got to make sure it's dry before you put it on, or else it won't stick. And then you're going to want to fill out the date, the time, what site you're at, and make sure that you are recording everything on your chain of custody sheet, which I will talk about a little bit later. Here is what the label looks like. Your site ID will vary depending on what site you chose. It could be like Sligo Creek 3, AR4, Anacostia River 4. I think that it depends on which site you're signing up for, but you're going to go ahead and put your site ID. You're going to put your initials down. You're going to put the time and the date. And please be very, very specific with the time. It helps us in the lab. There is a pretty strict window of when we can process after something has been collected, so we don't want that time window to lapse and not be able to use the sample. So please make sure that you are writing that down so that we can keep track of when that sample was collected. And a quick note on field duplicates. Every now and then your cooler is going to come with 2 bacteria bottles in them instead of 1. This is a quality assurance, quality control measure. So basically what we do is sometimes we run 2 samples to make sure that the 2 numbers that we get from the processing are the same. If the 2 bottles that you've collected at the same site at the same time have drastically different levels of bacteria in them, then that might indicate that something in the sampling process or the lab process went awry. So this is a good way to make sure that all of our analysis is good. And we also use this data. Our data is allowed to be used by the Maryland Department of Environment in their reporting. And we also give this information to academics. So we want to make sure that our information is as accurate as possible. We will reach out to you ahead of time, letting you know that you are going to be getting a duplicate in your kit. But it really is just as easy as if you receive 2 bottles in your cooler, you will be getting us 2 bottles of water. If you only have 1 bottle, don't worry about it. You don't have a duplicate that week. But we will email you ahead of time to let you know, just as a quick heads up. Once you've done your bacteria sample, you'll be taking turbidity samples. They're taken in the same size bottle as the bacteria bottle, but they're a little bit more opaque. So it kind of looks like this picture that you're seeing over here. It's not quite as see-through and there's no powder in it. Basically, turbidity is looking to see if there is any suspended sediment or substrates or pieces of dirt or pollution that is floating in the water, and then we're comparing it to EPA standards. We typically recommend that you go a little bit more upstream. So if the water is flowing down, you move up a little bit further from where you did your initial sampling, just because it might have kicked up some of the sediment in the water, especially in the more shallow areas. So make sure that you go a little bit above where you sampled before, maybe just like 2 or 3 feet to a place that you haven't stirred up at all. And you are going to want to rinse these turbidity bottles out 3 times. We do reuse these bottles, which means that some of the sediment or soap from our cleaning process could be lingering and hanging out. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to scoop against the flow of the water, and then you're going to toss it further down behind you. You're going to do that 3 times. Scoop, toss further behind you, so that the water that you're scooping and tossing doesn't end up flowing back down into you. And then after you've done 3 rinse scoops, on that 4th scoop, you are going to scoop it into the water and fill it up to the brim. The more water in that, the better. And then make sure that you are screwing that cap on as tightly as possible. And we are going to give you the same adhesive label. You're going to do the same thing, the site, the date, the time, your initials. And the labels are going to look the exact same. And we in the lab will know the difference between the bacteria and the turbidity sample, so you don't have to write anything down about which one is which. We'll know which one to use. And please make sure that your cooler is on ice and that these are being put next to the ice packages, because we do not want any algae or anything to grow in between the sampling time and our process time, because that will mess up the reading. Make sure it's tucked right next to the ice pack next to your bacteria bottle. Next, we are going to be doing our nutrient and MST samples. They both go into these brown 1-liter Nalgene's. Before taking the sample, you're going to rinse the bottle out 2 or 3 times. You can fill it up just halfway and swirl it around and then dump it, doing the same procedure that we did for the turbidity. And then you are going to fully immerse the bottle 1 to 2 inches below the surface level and fill it all the way up. Avoid collecting any sediment if possible. This is going to be a little bit harder in like the narrow, more shallow streams, but just do your best to avoid surface scum and the bottom dirt. And then make sure that the cap is on as tightly as possible and place upright in the cooler on ice. And you're going to do this a second time with your second brown bottle, and these are going to go to our partnerships with UMD and with CERC for the nutrient and MST analysis. Once all of your samples are collected, we need to make sure that your field sheet is completed. You'll have the air temperature, water temperature, and pH that you took in your first couple steps. You're going to go ahead and write those down. And then we're also asking you some questions about the weather and stream conditions. These are qualitative questions based on what you are able to see at the site. So it'll ask, like, what does the surface look like? Is it calm? Is it really, are there ripples? Are there white caps? Are you seeing waves? You don't really see that so much in streams, but and then we'll also ask you about the stream flow. Is it going really fast, really slow? Is the water high? Is it low? What is the water color looking like? Is it looking kind of cloudy? We'll ask you about the weather. A majority of the time, you're going to say that things are looking normal, but we want to make sure that anything abnormal is collected. And remember that water can be anything from clear to slightly brown or even a little bit green. If you feel like something is abnormal, please leave us a nice little description and tell us what you're seeing. And always take pictures for us. If you think that something is abnormal, take a picture and shoot it to us just so that we can see what you're seeing out in the watershed. And then we're also going to want to note anything that you might have found in the water, like if it looks like the water is covered with like a film of oil, if there are dead fish, if we're seeing erosion, if we're seeing foam, debris, a peculiar odor, and SAV, which is like a submerged aquatic vegetation. If you're seeing any of that, it's a good thing if we see SAV growing. It's a sign of a healthy ecosystem. We want to keep track and make sure that all of that, and see if that is happening in our watershed. And then we have a little thing for you at the bottom that says field samples for the lab. You'll just check off and make sure that you have completed everything. Did you collect your bacteria sample? Did you put the label on it? Turbidity. Did you place everything into the cooler? Did you fill out the chain of custody, which we'll talk about next? And if you were provided a duplicate, did you do it? Here is our chain of custody. This is going to be on the back of your field sheet. We do use, like I mentioned before, we do use these samples for research and regulatory purposes. So we like to be really thorough with tracking them. In this example, we had a duo that went down to 2 sites, AR5 and AR6. They logged that they took their bacteria and turbidity bottles. They logged where they had duplicates, and then they turned it over to our staff. We have really accurate time measurements. Instead of just saying 9:30, they said 9:32. We appreciate being as accurate as possible. And then you'll hand it over to us. We'll say who it was relinquished by, who it was received by, and that will help us keep track of where these samples were and where they ended up. And before you leave your site, there are a few things that we want to make sure that you check up on. You want to check the labels on your sample bottles, make sure we have as much information as possible, make sure that the site is on there, the date, the time, your initials, make sure everything is labeled so that we don't lose track of what's what in the lab. Make sure that your samples are in the cooler. So make sure that they are sitting next to your ice pack, whatever ice pack you chose to bring. And then make sure that you're checking out your field worksheet so that all of your notes, your observations, everything that you need to tell us, everything that we've asked you to tell us is all filled out. Some people like to think, oh, I'll remember that. I can fill that out once I get to the drop-off location. I'll remember that what I did and when I did it. Just go ahead and fill it out while you're at the site so that you don't forget. I have pretty bad short-term memory, so I find it very helpful to be doing it as I'm doing it. And then make sure you're completing your portion of the chain of custody forms, and please make sure that you are leaving no trace. With things like pH and with the little sticker adhesives, it's very easy to lose track of the trash that is left behind. Just put that back in your cooler and make sure that we are not contributing to the rampant trash problem in the Anacostia watershed. And last but not least, please make sure that you're taking a good picture at the site. This is good for our reporting as well as our public information. We like to be able to post pictures of people sampling on our social media. We like to report to our funders and our supporters what we're seeing out in the watershed. So if you are at your site, if you can take a quick selfie, if you're with somebody else, take a picture of them doing the monitoring, or even just take a picture of the site itself. As you can see, we have one picture that's just the samples by their cooler, something pretty for us to use. We really appreciate that. And then after all of that is done, you are going to be dropping off your samples. We have 3 locations for you to drop them off at. They are located here on the screen. They will be in your manual as well, so make sure that you are telling us which drop-off site you want to bring all of your supplies to, and then bring them there in the time frames in which they are allowed. Once your samples reach the lab, we use something called the IDEX system. This is one of 3 EPA-approved ways to measure bacteria and E. coli in the water. We take the water that you bring to us, we add something called collart, which is a fancy sugar that E. coli bacteria will eat, and it makes the bacteria glow under black light. So we put them into these little trays that have a bunch of little pockets in them. We incubate the trays to let the bacteria grow and reproduce. We mentioned that we don't want the bacteria to grow and reproduce in your cooler and in the samples before you bring them to us, because we want to make sure that they grow and reproduce at a standardized rate and in a standardized time period that allows us to take these, to measure these samples accurately. So we are growing them, and then we are putting them under a black light, and we are looking at how many of the little pockets glow in the dark, under the black light. So we compare the number of non-glowing boxes versus the number of glowing boxes, and that allows us to estimate the number of colony-forming units, otherwise known as CFUs, in the water. A colony-forming unit is a unit that is used in microbiology to estimate the number of living bacteria cells in a sample. So, in terms of the EPA and EPA health, recreation standards, a healthy human immune system is able to fight back against 410 CFUs or less. So 410 is our recreational standard of do not enter. So long as the sample is reading under 410, you're safe to recreate in that water. Your immune system, so long as you're not immunocompromised, is able to fight that off. And anything over 410 is where public health officials say that water is unsafe. We do kind of give you information in a green, yellow, and red, of green being like this is absolutely good to go, yellow means like use caution, and then red is anything 410 and above. That means absolutely do not enter. This water is considered unsafe. In terms of measuring turbidity, we use a little device that shines light through a sample in a little clear glass vial. If a lot of light passes through the sample, and is measured by the system, that means that there's not a lot of sediment, the water's not very cloudy, a lot of light is passing through, so the water's pretty clear. If not a lot of light is going through the sample, that means that the light is being stopped or intercepted and reflected back by sediment and pollution in the water, so that means the turbidity is higher. EPA says 20 nephometric turbidity units, or NTUs, is our magical number. You're never going to have crystal clear water in moving water like in a river or a stream. There's always going to be some stuff floating in there, some dirt floating. So long as the number is under 20 NTUs, the EPA says that's not a lot of sediment. So there is a low probability of pollutants being carried by the sediment in the water that could have the chance of making you sick. And then our job is to share that data with you. So Thursday afternoons, we post our data to our social media. You're able to find it on the Chesapeake Monitoring Cooperative and as well as on our website. Follow us on social media to get updates about the water that you've just sampled and use that to inform your recreation. We post little maps with the, like I mentioned before, whether or not a site is green, yellow, or red, and as well as the information about what those E. coli levels are looking like. The next steps for you in order to become a water quality monitor are complete our certification test and our waiver. Those will be linked in the description below. It's an open notes test. You can use the information that you've learned today to help you take it. And then once you have passed, watch your email for your site sign up. We will send you the sheet so that you can sign up for which sites you want to do and when you want to do them. And then last but not least, because we are certifying virtually today, we will ask you to do a stream side demo with us. We'll pair you up with one of our veteran water quality monitors and then get you out with them to see how they do it. They can answer any of your questions, and that will make sure that you are completely ready to go and start monitoring on your own or with your duo. So those are the next steps for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and for volunteering with us. We are excited to see you out in the watershed and to be getting this information, and we really appreciate all of the help to keep this program alive and to keep people informed about their water. So thank you so much, and have a good rest of your day.